a Noble Media Group member.
The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
6,000 years ago, man invented the wheel. 5,000 years later, he invented the printing press. 460 years later, he would fly. 70 years later, he would step on the moon. And 8 years later, he would send a spacecraft beyond our solar system. Today, we have computers which can think for themselves and robots that can dance. Properly utilized, today's technologies can bring an end to poverty, hunger, and even the need to work, or to make bombs that will end all life on Earth. Will we destroy ourselves or come together?
It is now 85 seconds to midnight. This is the closest the world has ever been to midnight.
Join Joe Carvin as he explores these questions, because mankind is on the hinge of history. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hinge of History with Joe Carvin. This is Brian Mistro. Good morning or good afternoon, I guess, depending upon which time zone you are. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. How about yourself? Yeah, it's my afternoon.
Oh, it is. That's right. Yeah, you and I are on two different clocks. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. We're going to have some fun with this one today, Joe, and I'm just going to hand it over to you because we're living
Fantastic.
right now in an amazing time.
Amazing time. And today we're going to examine another fundamental 21st century concept, the singularity, or more accurately, the technology singularity. The technology singularity refers to a hypothetical point in time when technological growth becomes so rapid and profound that it fundamentally transformed human civilization in ways we cannot begin to predict or comprehend from our current vantage point. Most commonly, it's associated with the creation of artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence, that is AI that surpasses human intelligence and can recursively improve itself, leading to an intelligence explosion beyond anything we can see. The singularity is generally characterized by four items. One, an event horizon beyond which one cannot see, like a black hole. In fact, singularity is a term borrowed from physics. So really think of this event horizon or a black hole beyond what you can't see. A second characteristic is the recursive self-improvement. That is an AI capable of improving its own intelligence, triggering a feedback loop, each time improved, making it better and better, leading to exponential or even faster growth. Radical transformation is another one. The changes would be so fundamental that post-singularity civilization would be unrecognizable to pre-singularity humans, comparable to trying to explain the internet to someone from the Middle Ages. And finally, our time frames will be greatly reduced. What would normally take centuries of progress could occur in years, months, or even shorter periods. In fact, Brian, in the book we wrote, in the second chapter, The Great Transition, we explain that the intelligence explosion we're currently experiencing has actually been predicted for by over 75 years by polymaths ranging from Alan Turing to John Van Neumann to I.J. Good to Werner Vinch, and more recently by Ray Kurzweil. Brian, is that a surprise?
That is
that predicting this for 75 years?
No, it is an absolute surprise.
Right?
I mean, because they didn't. I mean, 75 years ago, or we even, and I don't mean to be rude about it, but did we even have computers back then? I mean, we didn't even have functioning computers, right?
Well, Brian,
So,
that's why I enjoy working because you're asking exactly this same question. In fact, it was fairly quaint because they called them electronic brains more than computers in those days. And so, in fact, the first person to coin the term singularity was John von Neumann, a true intellectual force of nature, often described by his peers as the smartest person in the 20th century, even smarter than Einstein. And he helped build computers. And he explained to his collaborator in 1950, he said, the ever accelerating progress of technology gives the appearance of approaching some essential singularity in the history of the race, beyond which human affairs, as we know them, could not continue. Wow. Brian, can you imagine this guy in the 1950s talking about an event horizon beyond which the affairs of human beings could not continue? Pretty crazy. In fact, I was thinking about this today, as you suggest. Color TVs were a rare luxury in the 50s.
Yeah.
I checked, we could have TVs, but certainly not color TVs. I remember the fanfare in my neighborhood when we got a color TV and everybody started watching it with us. So he was the first one. But then in 1965, a British mathematician, I.J. Good, anticipated recursive self-improvement. Remember we talked about Anthropic's announcement on Monday about recursive self-improvement?
Yes.
In 1965, I.J. Good predicted this event. He said, the first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man ever need make, provided that machine is docile enough to tell us how to keep it going. But basically, the reason is simple. Once you create an intelligent machine that can replicate itself, you've launched a feedback loop that will accelerate into an intelligence explosion beyond which it'll become difficult to see. And that's what we talked about last week with Anthropic's announcement of recursive self-improvement. So we're getting closer. But one of my favorite polymaths is a gentleman named Werner Vinge. And he taught at San Diego State. He was an accomplished mathematician and science fiction writer. And in the 90s, it was Vinge who gave the concept its definite modern shape in his landmark essay, The Coming Technological Singularity, How to Survive the Post-Human Era. And in the essay, he said, within 30 years, in 1993, he said, within 30 years, we'll have the technological means to create a superhuman intelligence. Shortly after, the human era will be ended. Are you ready for the end of the human era, Brian?
I don't know about that, but I will point out that it was in the 90s. That's really when the internet just started in its infancy. And look where we are. He was right. 30 years later.
100%. He was right on the money.
Yeah.
He said somewhere between 2005, eventually refined it. He said somewhere between 2005 and 2030. And he went on in the email, the essay, he went on to say, the accelerator, just to understand the concept and again understand how prescient these people were. He said the acceleration of technological progress has been the central feature of the century. That's what we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
I argue in this paper that we are on the edge of a change comparable to the rise of human life on Earth. The precise cause of this change is the immediate creation by technology of entities with greater than human intelligence. We need to take seriously the possibility of superhuman intelligence and prepare for its consequences because it could happen in our lifetimes. And unless we can ensure that the resulting intelligence is human friendly, we may face a future where human beings are not the dominant species. I think it's fair to call this event a singularity. It's a point where our models must be discarded and a new reality rules, a reality that might be beyond our ability to control or even understand. The best hope for long-term survival may lie in some form of intimate collaboration between humans and machines. Unless we can ensure that the resulting intelligence is human-friendly, we may face a future where humans are not the dominant species. Wow.
That's just
What do you
incredible.
think, Brian?
That's incredible. I mean, it's, if you look back from where we've come, and I think I'm going to say this from my narrow viewpoint, my generation has gotten to see this stuff take off. We've seen it before. We've seen it while it's happening, and now we're going to get to see it afterwards. It's just amazing. Amazing time to live.
And again, what I got to say, in the chapter 2 of our book, as I mentioned, we traced this 75-year set of predictions. There's one more prediction I'll talk about in a second. But rereading the chapter, rethinking this in light of Anthropic's announcement, look, it really, the reason we're doing this, it connects the dots. So remember, back started, you can't understand today's world without understanding exponential change.
Yep.
Then we had the Anthropic announcement. Now we're talking about the singularity. It's really essential It's in the mindset of the futurists. Now, the guy that really brought the singularity to bear in the last 26 years is a guy named Ray Kurzweil. In 2005, he wrote a book, The Singularity is Near When Humans Transcend Biology. When Humans Transcend Biology, in 2005. And the book was a game changer. It took the singularity conversation out of niche circles to the general public. That's hard to remember back to 2005, but Kurzweil made a number of what seemed like audacious predictions at the time. To everyone's surprise, the vast majority of these crazy projections proved right. One that's about to be right is he predicted that humanity would pass the Turing test in 2029, which is basically artificial general intelligence. I don't know if you remember what the Turing test is, if you heard of it. The Turing test is when, and of course, in many ways we passed already. It's when you compare a computer and a human being, and the interviewer can't tell which is which, right? So many people say we've already passed the Turing test. For me, Ray has a more, challenging definition, and ultimately, I think one of the real things about this conversation is it's really hard to settle on a single definition. So, like the singularity, everybody has different definitions for the singularity. We'll talk about Ray's definitions in a second, but also for artificial general intelligence. And again, this is, you remember, I'll keep saying this. How can they be obtuse? So obtuse.
Hey, and Joe, let's do real quickly for those that didn't see the last episode. Tell everybody what happened with Anthropic what they just announced real quick.
Right, and the reason this is I'll take my glasses off for emphasis. The reason this is so important is because what Anthropic said, recursive self-improvement is around the corner. We need to put a pause. So for 75 years, we've been predicting. And by the way, it arrived 30 years earlier than expected. In all honesty, I would argue that ChatGPT was done unfairly, as we talked about. At the end of the day, Google had the capacity, Anthropic had the capacity, Meta had the capacity to launch when they did, and they launched too soon. So now you have this crazy world. They launched it into the world of, bipolar competition between China and the United States and huge corporate competition amongst Australia. But in terms of the announcement, they said recursive self-improvement is around the corner. And why did they conclude that? Their coders are 8 times more efficient. 8 times. I'm more efficient. I'm about 8 times. 8 times more efficient in coding than they were just a year ago. And 80% of the coding is done by AI. And they're saying, listen, when we get to 100%, no one, it's anybody's bet what's going to happen. In fact, you and I will have a conversation more fully when we get through the last iteration and definition of the singularity. But ultimately, are we in the singularity today? Google just had a big conference, and the name of today's show is we're in the foothills of the singularity. Right? I don't know if we hit the event horizon yet, and we'll talk. Let me just finish up with the last thing that Ray Kurzweil did.
Okay.
So his 2005 book was a game changer, but what he really talked about is, and in 2024 he did a new book. But the reason he was be able to so successfully predict what is happening, because he came up with the law of accelerating returns, where he explains an analysis of the history of technology shows that technological change is exponential, contrary to the common sense, intuitive linear view. We've talked about that. So we won't experience 100 years of change in the 21st century. It'll be more like 20,000 years of change at today's rate. And that's before we hit the double exponential. He goes on to say the returns such as chip speed and cost effectiveness also increase exponentially. We've talked about Moore's law. There's even exponential growth in the rate of exponential growth. Within a few decades, machine intelligence will surpass human intelligence, leading to the singularity. Technological change so rapid and profound, it represents a rupture in the fabric of humanity. Again, you keep hearing that, rupture in the fabric. On one side of the singularity, today's humanity. On the other side, a new human era. So this is what we're talking about. And this is what he's saying. Now, Brian, it's a huge rupture. So he put that book out in 2005, but he wrote another book in 2024. The new book is called The Singularity is Nearer When We Merge with AI. So this is what he said. Fascinating. The implications could include the merger of biological and non-biological intelligence, immortal software-based humans, and ultra-high levels of intelligence that expand outward in the universe at the speed of light.
Wow.
So
Wow.
basically, Brian, are you ready for immortality? Come on,
I mean,
baby.
this is like this is science fiction kind of stuff, you
Thank
know?
you. Thank you. No, there's a great quote. I won't remember. Arthur C. Clarke talked about, the more technology advances, the more it seems like magic. But at the end of the day, no, it's science fiction. In fact, Werner Vinge, who wrote science fiction, was complaining because he said, the technology is going so fast you can't even be imaginative. We've got to slow things down. But I mean, wow, I used to joke around, right? I used to joke. We first read Kurzweil again, in the early 2000s. We did our technological, we're watching it. And we used to joke around at one where, okay, what does this mean? It means I'm going to take my brain and put it in an avatar. Like Ray said, I'm going to live forever. That was a joke. Well, now we're in 2024. It's happening. 75 years of prediction. It's happening.
Right.
It's around the corner. And by the way, Ray's not the only one. Yuval Noah Harari also in his book Homo Deus talked about immortality as a technical challenge. Now again, I look, I don't, but what? So actually, but the interesting thing about Ray doesn't think the singularity will take place until 2045.
Okay.
And right. So of course, you're asking what? What? So Ray's saying the singularity won't take place until 2045. The Turing test will be passed in 2029. AGI will have. Now again, I can see the confusion, and this is the confusion people are asking. How can you have AGI in 2029 and not have? So I asked the question I asked my AI today, and Ray's talking about human beings merging with AI in the 2030s, and ultimately, again, putting this avatar. So I think what he's saying is the biological
Merging with it. Okay.
will take longer. You're a biology guy. I mean, what do you think? Can you imagine how could you? Do you have any ideas? Let me ask you. You're the biology guy. Is there any way human beings can merge with machines and live forever?
I'm gonna say yes, there is. We're not there
Really?
yet, but they've got. I think Elon Musk is even the one
Yes.
supporting it.
Neuralink.
The
Neuralink.
Neuralink. That's right.
Yes.
So are we there right now? No. Is it theoretically possible? We're starting to see it happen. So
Yeah.
again, we're on the very beginning of it, but that's incredible. I mean, it's incredible to even think about.
Yeah. No, it's impossible, and so I think I tend to think this singularity is going to be closer to 2035. A lot of the guys are saying, well, some of the people are saying we're in the singularity already, right?
Right.
And we can all agree probably that it's very difficult to see beyond the time horizon. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Again, Yuval Noah Harari says for the first time in human history, we have no idea what the world's going to look like in 2040.
Yeah.
I think that would probably be the consensus view. So on one definition, you could argue, and we're now again, Google's talking about the foothills of the singularity. But there is one thing I'd like to do now, if we could, because I mentioned to my wife, who keeps me grounded, I think otherwise I'd levitate. I said, look, Anthropic made the most powerful communication in human history. And she said, Joe, you're a little given to hyperbole. And so I said, okay, well, I'd like you to show that video now, if you wouldn't mind, Brian.
I will.
I follow two podcasts religiously. The All In podcast, a lot of people know about, and the podcast with Peter Diamandis, David Blundin, Alex, I can't remember his name, and another gentleman. It's fantastic. So Peter Diamandis is the godfather of abundance. He's really been at the forefront of this thinking. He has a fantastic podcast. If you'd show just a blurb from that, if you wouldn't mind, Brian.
You do it right now. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, amazing. Dave, when you read this, what did you think?
Well, look, Peter, this is the most important moment in human history. And you think back on the turning points of humanity, World War II, Cuban Missile Crisis, invention of nuclear weapons. This is so much bigger And as you know, this is the whole reason I went to MIT in the first place. I've been thinking about this moment since I was 14 years old and how it would play out. Uh, so the paper itself, it's not about slowing down. It's about putting in place a new world order where we have the ability to slow down. Mm-hmm. And that's the crux of it. And it makes a lot of other points in terms of the timeline. It tries to predict the timeline. You know, when we interviewed Eric Schmidt, he said, we have time. You know, it's not self-improving yet. But then you read the paper and you're like, well, look, it's doing 80% of the code now at Anthropic, but look at the shape of the curve and the relative change. So we know that there's 100x performance improvement baked into just the algorithmic improvements alone. So when it is truly self-improvement, it goes from soft takeoff to, I don't know if you call it hard takeoff, but it's 100x very, very quick increase in effective parameter count. And we've seen so far that parameter count translates into IQ. So I think that's why even on the eve of an IPO, Dario has every economic incentive to just kind of soft sell it, get through the IPO, bank a lot of money. He's not doing that because the moment is now, regardless of where you are in your IPO cycle, and they have to get this word out now.
That's incredible. You know, one of the things that I think people underappreciate, especially out of that video, they don't, but they underappreciate that in theory, by doing what they did and coming out and announcing and putting the pause or and so forth, they were actually going against their own financial interests.
100%, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
In fact, they filed for the IPO on Monday, and they made this announcement on Thursday. And a lot of people are skeptical. You know, there's always the naysayers. I love Dario Amodei. If you remember, he left OpenAI because he said they're not sufficiently serious about the power of this technology. So he has credibility right then and there. And then remember, we had the conversation. He took on the U.S. government. It was ready to give up. He gave up on a $200 million contract.
That's right.
And then if you remember recently, Mythos, in fact, it's actually relevant today. Mythos, they had another enormously powerful product they were just putting out called Mythos. But that product was so powerful, it could find the holes in people's cybersecurity and bring down the whole financial system. So they brought it to the banks, said, get your bank in order. They took it to the U.S. government, get your bank in order. And so what they did today, they launched it yesterday. So they fixed it. So it's no longer Mythos. What they have is Mythos, but if you try and do anything, dishonest with it, they have safety controls. So it's Mythos with safety controls. I think they called it Fabula 5 or something today. So that came out. But the real thing is, not that I'm looking to get support on my hyperbole, but he said the same thing. It's the most important announcement in human history.
Yeah.
And again, the reason I chose to talk about the singularity today, Brian, our conversation has been anticipated by one polymath after the other for 75 years. They saw it. And we didn't see it till the ChatGPT moment, and we're beginning to see it today. And quite frankly, I don't know what, actually, let me ask you, how many people are having this conversation? How many people are even beginning to say it? I think far less than 5%.
Yeah.
How many? Yeah, I mean, look, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to watch a show, you're going to be great at cocktail conversations. I'll give you several, things to talk about to throw at the cocktail. My favorite is minute 37. Step 37, which was an AlphaGo, played the Go champion.
Yeah.
And they moved 37. Move 37.
Yeah, move 37.
When they made move 37, that was 2,000 years of human history nobody had ever done. So you go, yeah, I was thinking about a move 37. And you throw that at your cocktail party. You'll get a winner, Brian.
Hey, I know we're getting short on time, but let's do one real quickly. Tell the audience what our next couple of shows and where we're going to go with a lot of this that's happening.
Okay. Next week, we're going to talk about Google just had a big conference, and it was called the Foothills of the Singularity. So Demis Hassabis is the most conservative, and I would argue conscientious, futurist LLM builder. He's with Google DeepMind. He's been doing it for 15 years. His whole goal is to solve human, the meaning of life. He's a true scientist. In fact, Sebastian Mallaby, British author, just wrote a book about him. I highly recommend it. So we're going to talk about Google's conference and being at the foothills of the singularity. Most importantly, we're going to talk about the end of disease.
Wow.
We're going to bring an end to disease.
Wow. It's just incredible. Just incredible. The times that we're living in.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe, for this. Everyone, if you're watching this, please make sure to subscribe to our channel. You're going to get the hinge of history. If you enjoy talking about politics, you can join the political arena. If you're kind of more of a 60 minutes type of person, then Restoring the American Dream. We've got a lot of shows, a lot of stuff that we're putting out, and it's an exciting time. Same thing as it's a very exciting time for AI. It's also a very exciting time for what we're doing with the Noble Media Group. So please subscribe if you like it. Press the like button. If you've got some questions for Joe, throw them out there. We'll read them on the air. I mean, we will literally answer it on the air. But again, this is exciting where we're going, Joe. It's just an incredible time to be alive. And really appreciate all you're doing. And we will see everybody. We will see you this next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
You've been watching Joe Carvin's Hinge of History. The No Bull Media Group is available on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us a follow where you can watch this show and many others.
A No Bull Media Group member.